Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
Welcome to STS, everyone. If you are just joining us, we are officially on verdict watch. Joel is leaving the courtroom right now, and we'll be going to set up, and he will be hopping on here, hopefully in the next 15 minutes or so, depending how long it takes him to go down the elevator and outside of the building. I think he may try to either go back to the hotel room or find a safe space since it's now 7:30 at night. But we are on verdict watch. We are going to have Joel hop on. He's going to give us a breakdown of everything. In case you missed today, he'll give you a lot of highlights. And then many of us are going to be hearing for the first time a lot of the details that Joel was able to take notes on about the jurors' reactions and even some other interesting things. For the most part, our cameras were pointing forward, so we couldn't see a lot of family reaction, and obviously we never see juror reaction. So as soon as Joel is ready, he will be hopping on. So stand by for probably another 15 minutes or so. I just want to let you guys know how this is going to work. We are going to have this stream live tonight until the jurors go home. So we don't know when that will be. If a verdict reached, obviously, we'll be here and you'll know because you'll see it. But we'll keep you guys updated. And again, as soon as Joel is ready, he will hop on here and he'll give us all a breakdown. And I'm not sure whether or not we're having any best guests join him, but I will give you guys an update as soon as I hear from him. And I haven't spoken to him in a few hours, so I'm going to check in and make sure he's all set for hopping on here. But if you need anything, I'm available in the chat. Stand by, and yeah, we'll be with you guys shortly. Thanks so much. Welcome, everyone. For those just joining us, we are on standby. We're waiting for Joel, the host of STS, to come on and give us a breakdown of everything that happened in court and shed some light on some of the things we didn't see, like family reaction. Apologies, I have my dogs and my kids here. Like family reaction and also juror reaction. Joel says he plans to not leave the courthouse, so he's trying to find a quiet place since they didn't want him to do it in the hallway. So just give him a minute or two or three to get set up. But we are on standby and waiting for Joel. Thanks so much.
Hey, Bugs.
Joel, just so you know, you're live. You have a hot mic live on camera. It
There I
automatically put you in.
I
Yeah.
actually see myself. Hello, everybody. Thank you
Hot
for the
mic.
warning.
Hot mic. Okay.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to this live verdict watch coverage of the Sarah Boone trial, coming to you live from the Orange County Courthouse. And I need to whisper because I'm in a rotunda in a public area, so you'll be hearing soft-spoken Joel. Obviously, COE, you're in charge. If there is a verdict, I have no way to know because I'm essentially in a cave at the bottom of this building. If we get notice of a verdict, you need to let me know and I will race back upstairs. I literally am going to have a hard time reading these comments right now, but I will do my best. Let me go over some of the most important things first, and that is the primary jurors. So, as you all know, this is a 6-panel jury with 8 alternates. When the closings finished, the judge informed the alternates of who they were. He asked them to, he thanked them for their service, said there was a hot dinner waiting for them, and essentially said, hey, you guys can go back to the room. I'll give you your jury certificates. And so that's what they did. And he asked the 6 primary jurors to remain. So again, if you're just joining, I have to kind of talk in a whisper because I'm in this rotunda of the Orange County Courthouse and I don't want to interfere with other people. The jurors, there are 5 female jurors, 1 black male juror. Interesting. I didn't realize who the primaries would be. I was going from one direction to the other, but it was really right my right to left. And I was told it was left to right. So the grumpy juror is not part of the panel. The people who are part of the panel, we've referred to Hot Pink Blouse. She's the one yesterday when they were asking if people could stay, and they were because a juror had a conflict at 5:30 p.m. She's the juror who basically did one of these, like turned around, that went this way, and was corralling all the jurors and taking their vote. So I have a feeling she's going to be the foreperson. She was also really excited to be on this jury, maybe a little too excited, and I don't know what to make of that. But she has me a little bit concerned. I love you right back, Julie. For you are awesome. Thank you for all your help. So here are the jurors. Hot Pink Blouse, I'll call her. I do not have a name for everyone. The next juror is a roughly 40-year-old white woman. These names, names of the jurors, sorry. So then we've got 40-year-old bland woman, I'll call her. I might forget my names. Then the next juror is like a 50-year-old black male who's been, just watching very carefully, no tells from him at all. Every day, it's like the same affect on his face. He just looks stoic and he is watching all the action unfold quietly. Next to Quiet Man, we've got the DV juror, and she was taking copious notes. I'm making a note for myself that 40-year-old woman will now be called Bland Juror Woman. Heretofore, she'll be known as Bland Juror Woman. Please don't tell her I said that. And that is her official name now, Bland Juror Woman. So next to Bland Juror, again, is Quiet Juror Man. Is that what I just called him? Let me make a note of that. Got a Quiet Juror Man. And then we've got the DV Juror. And then we have two almost similarly looking, I would just say, young middle-aged white women. When I say young middle-aged, I'm saying like 45. They could be 45 up a little bit, and they actually look sort of similar. It's really hard to tell them apart. I'm good with faces and terrible with names, so they're kind of people, and I don't mean this in a mean way, but they don't really stand out. Either does Bland Juror. That's why I called her Bland. So these three women aren't women that like you would know that there's nothing striking about them as opposed to like Hot Pink Blouse, who wears colorful blouses and she's a little more boisterous. These jurors are very kind of soft-spoken to each other when they're talking, very observant, taking it appears like they're very serious. All the women are white, 5 women, at least from what I can tell, and one black male juror, heretofore known as Quiet Juror Man. So I was sitting directly behind Sarah Boone, and I mean like 2 feet. Toward the end of the day, I'm just looking at some of my notes because I'm so fried. This motion came up, which is interesting, about the financial agreement. Some weird reactions, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on. Now, the state filed that motion because they don't want, after the fact, for there to be any kind of conflict in terms of financial expenditures by Sarah Boone. So the state basically said, look, this was an incredibly expensive defense. They've been here for 3 weeks, costs a lot of money, and Ms. Boone is indigent. So what is happening here? It was essentially just a CYA, cover your you know what. So that's what was going on. And that's exactly what happened is Will J just wanted to make sure he was dotting his I's and crossing his T's. Now, the judge himself, now remember, I was on Ashley Banfield 2 nights ago, and I had multiple sources telling me that there was some sort of a book deal The next day, James Owens was not happy with me. By the way, he was laughing and smiling with me today. But he was not happy with me and said it is categorically false. I'm going to take him at face value. But when the judge was asking the other attorneys to basically come forward, Tony Henderson said something interesting. He said, I don't know about any arrangement, which is a little interesting because he worked with James Owens. So why would he just do this pro bono? And Kevin Beck had an interesting response, and then said, no, there's no need to worry. But he cited attorney-client privilege. So I don't know. It's curious to me, and I'll just leave it there. But again, James Owens saying that he categorically denies that he, in lieu of payment as for being her attorney, that he got any kind of book rights or movie rights or rights to Sarah Boone's story. I am so. I have to go
Well,
like
Joel,
this
we're
to
going to
read
leave
this.
Joel, we're going to leave that at curious, but let's move on here. I know you can't read the questions, so I'm going to read them for you.
Yeah,
If that's
please,
okay.
because I can't.
Okay, this is from AKA the Cat Lady. Joel,
Yeah.
thank you for taking the time out of your life for this trial. What do you think about George's mom crying?
I mean, that was the most dramatic moment today, without question. The minute she had never seen the suitcase video, Mrs. Torres, and so this was the first time she was seeing it played in court, and obviously it was being played by the state. And the minute, like just couple of maybe seconds into it, I heard an audible gasp, and I was, I'm already like, I was joking that I've got PTPD, the post traumatic phone disorder, because I'm constantly checking my phone to make sure it doesn't go off. By the way, someone was thrown out today because their phone rang, which heightened my PTPD. Not making light of PTSD, but I'm just, it's uptight in that courtroom, so intense. But at this moment, when they played the video, George's mom just had a natural reaction, which I think any mom would, and she just lost it and started kind of hyperventilating and sobbing. Her son's right next to her. She's tinier than George, by the way. She's a very small woman. Her daughters are with her. The daughters are very protective. At one point I walked out, and I think they thought I was going to try to either talk to her or take a photo. I was going to do neither, but they kind of stood in front of her. I've been in the business long enough to just be a human being and not, go talk to her the minute she's having this kind of breakdown. This was, a little bit after the breakdown, but essentially what happened after that, George's mom never came back, by the way. And COE, you're going to have to read these comments because I literally can't see anymore. I think I'm going blind by covering this.
This is a
For
super
Joel,
chat. No, can you read or
speak.
no? Okay, I'm going to read it to you. It's a super chat from Kelly for Joel and COE to enjoy couples massages when Joel is finally released from this case. We'll probably hire a babysitter and just sleep, but thank you so much, Kelly. But Joel, before you get into anything else, it was a long few hours of the closing arguments. Can you talk to us just about the jurors? As we were obviously watching the attorneys and the jurors were watching the attorneys. You were watching the jurors, I assume. Tell us what you were seeing. Were there any emotions? Were there any reactions?
You're
Were there
talking. You're talking during. Sorry, there's a janitorial crew here, but you're talking about during closing arguments.
Yeah, talk
Okay,
to us
so
about what they were reacting to. Were there any moments that you were taken aback by their reactions? Was there anything that sort of struck them?
yeah, I need to review the notes, but I've got enough off the top of my head. First of all, the detective showed back up today in support of the state, and again, James Owens had a bit of an objection to that. Um, Thank you, Wildfire. Um, they had to go through 34 pages of jury instructions, and then Dave Cacciatore, who was doing some of the questioning, but he did not do the opening. He got up to do the close, and he's a very intense guy. I was joking that he seems like the kind of guy that if you're just playing ping pong, he'd want to destroy you in that. He's a pretty muscular alpha male type, I would say, soft spoken, but he got up there and man, he had like complete command and control of that opening. I thought it was amazing. He started off by saying, "This is a box," and everyone's kind of like, "Why is it a box?" Because Eventually, he tied a box into being a coffin, which I thought was brilliant. He did go back to calling it a suitcase periodically, but he also dropped the suitcase right in front of the jurors. Now, when they did that, there was a noticeable reaction from the jury, kind of like, oh, well, here's a suitcase, right? And they were riveted. These jurors, all of them, I have to say, seem really dedicated to the process. They don't seem like any of them are disinterested or tuning out. They were engaged the entire time. I guess the two biggest jurors I would have concerns about potentially is the hot pink blouse, so I think could be the four-person. She gave Sarah a pretty nasty look today. And by the way, today, none of the jurors were looking at Sarah. I mean, almost the entire day. I did catch there's a love connection couple in the second row, and the male part of that love connection, I caught him at one point just glaring at Sarah Boone during James Owens' closing. He was just like staring dead into the back of her eyes. And he's the only one I really saw. I can't read that comment, Bugs. Her
This is
son's
from
last words. Yeah, she was saying that.
this was
How
from
did I become my
from
dad?
Vesper
How am I
Martinez.
losing my eyesight, Bugs? I'm like you. Um, by the way, I call her
Joel,
Bugs. Go ahead, COE.
going back to Vesper Martini here. She says her son's last words heartbreaking to a mother. We were all watching obviously from home, and just to clarify for us, were they asking the mother to leave, or did she want to leave? Could she have come back? Because that was also, a really strong moment, not only for obviously the mother who's grieving her son and having to watch these very sensitive videos, but for everyone in the court, I assume.
Yeah, COE, for my own sanity, just confirm that Spacey is watching the courtroom in case there's a verdict, because I have no way to know.
We have it up. We have like 5 tabs going. And I have
Okay.
alerts, and I'm in touch with other people who are also
Julie Frew, you're in charge of that. Thank you.
for Julie Frew, it's like 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning.
I love Julie Frew. She's a trooper. What was the question again? Oh, that moment. Okay, so they play the suitcase video. Obviously, you knew that that was going to be one of the most powerful pieces of video. The mother who is tiny. She just bursts into tears, and has to be led out of the courtroom by her daughter and her son. As she passed me, she was kind of hyperventilating a little bit. She had to go outside and collect herself. So that kind of blew over, and it was during the state's closing argument. So once the state's closing argument was finished, what is this countdown? Oh, this is the jury clock. Okay, very interesting. I like it. Very creative there. So once the state concluded, James Owens got right up and was angry, and he's like, "This is this is a courtroom. There's a protocol here. Can't influence the jurors." There was an audible gasp. If family members aren't able to handle this, they should not be in the courtroom. And it went on and on like this. He's very combative. It was difficult to watch because you could see the pain on the Torres' family. So it was just really tough to watch, but he has a job to do, I guess. So he was making a point that he didn't want the jurors to be influenced by a crying family member. But then he also kind of threw in the detectives, who at this point are not being recalled as witnesses, had every right to be there. So sometimes I get a sense that James Owens doesn't really understand at least how things work here in Orlando. And he was very combative. And Will J got real upset about that as well. And he basically said it is their absolute right to be in the courtroom, their family members, that he cannot control how a family member is going to react, and on it went. And it ended with, Judge Kranick basically saying to people in the gallery James Owens asked the judge to give a little bit of a warning, and it was a very light warning, basically saying try not to show emotion. But you could tell that Judge Kranick was feeling for the Torres family, who couldn't be, right? So I'm just looking through my notes here. What I thought was brilliant with the opening, with the closing with Dave Cacciatore, is he literally kind of put up the instructions for the jurors and the law, and point by point, he went through it and gave reasons why she is guilty. So it was fascinating to me because he was literally, in a way, and in essence, he was doing the job of the jurors in real time in his closing arguments. He was going point by point and saying exactly why each of these things were pertinent and why, again, she should be found guilty. He had some interesting lines. He said she zipped them up and did not zip him out. Thought that was powerful. That caught a lot of people's attention. He invoked the Depraved Mind Act, which is basically, her conduct. He said fits every definition of the depraved mind, which is an element in charging this case. And then this is when he said he called up State's Exhibit 17, which is the suitcase video. By the way, at the very end of the trial, they both sides go through all the exhibits to make sure that the jurors are getting the correct exhibit. So they're getting those photos, they're getting the videos, they're getting the text messages, they're getting the calls, the posters that James Owens had, all of that. They play the video, the "I can't breathe," that's on you. And then Cacciatore says that video proves any scintilla of doubt about the depravity of the defendant. And then goes on and hammers home the point that a month before, almost exactly to the day, a month before, Sarah Boone sent a text message saying, "I'll get rid of him." He didn't go so far as to say this was premeditated murder, but he did, make the point to show that she had it in for him, which I thought was really interesting. Said that she was actually torturing George Torres, that there has to be a justifiable use of deadly force, which did not apply here. Um, I wrote a note down. Here's why she's guilty. Law. Here's why she's guilty. The next law. Here's why she's guilty. I wrote down very smart and effective. Again, in essence, doing the jurors' work for them. He then went on to say what you're going to hear from the defense, which I thought was really smart too. He said, you're going to hear about curtain rods. You're going to hear about black eyes. You're going to hear awful things about her boyfriend, George Torres. And at the end of all of that, he says, it will still not change the defendant being entitled to use deadly force. So everything they hear still hangs on this issue of whether deadly force can be used. And the state
Well,
says absolutely not. Go ahead, COA.
sorry, I just want to jump in here. Great notes, by the way. You're doing a great job. I know it's been a
Thank
very
you.
long day. But so we were able to hear all of that, but we couldn't see Sarah's reaction because our view was mostly on the attorneys. So, and I know you were sitting behind her, so sometimes you can see her, sometimes you can't. Was there any emotion or anything that you saw different compared to, her emotion or lack thereof the whole trial? I mean, we did see her during some of the breaks smirking and smiling, which she always does, but was there anything that sort of made her react or stop?
Um, yes and no. So number one, like you said, I'm basically 3 to 4 feet directly behind her head. Like if you drew a line from the back of her head to the front of my head, I'm right there. But she talks to James Owens a lot, and she looks over at him. Now, after closings were done, or actually, I'm sorry, while the state was doing their rebuttal, she wrote some long note, like a long paragraph on a yellow legal pad, and she slid it over to him. And instead of like reading it, James Owens slid it away from himself and then just handed it back to her like he was just fed up. And he was tired. He didn't care what her notes said, which was an interesting observation, I thought, because it just talks to the dynamic of them. James Owens, if you think I look tired, James Owens looks like he's been through a washing machine. He said in court today that he's 63, he's been practicing 35 years, and this looks like it took a lot out of him. So, but back to Sarah Boone, she last week she couldn't sit still. As the days progressed this week, she's gotten quieter and quieter and kind of more comfortable in her little space there between James Owens and Tony Henderson. But she would look over, and one or two times she'll look back because Tony Henderson's daughter is sitting right in front of me, along with the blonde jury consultant person. And so, she turns around. She's a very, in person, like a very, and I don't mean to denigrate her. I'm just making an observation, like a very splotchy, red face that you'd either get from like drinking or stress. I mean, I don't think she's drinking in jail, but maybe it's just from stress. But it's much more noticeable in person. These kind of splotches. She had, as you know, a girlfriend there last week. No girlfriend in sight the last couple of days that I've seen. But just back to Cacciatore, I thought he did a great job, and then I'll kind of go over James Owen's closings, and then we'll wrap it until we maybe get a verdict. People, including Ryan Vesio, said he thought we would get a verdict within 2 to 3 hours. So it's possible that we get a verdict around 10 o'clock. By the way,
Joel,
Space, yes, go ahead.
we're also going to take some questions when you're ready. No pressure. Keep
Yeah.
going.
Okay. Here we go. So I'm just real quick. Dave Cacciatore basically summed it up by saying, battered spouse syndrome. She has been evaluated with that, but that is not carte blanche. And then he used the phrase, "It's not a license to kill," which I thought was effective. He said George did some bad things. He was arrested. It does not mean that Sarah Boone has an ace in her pocket. She cannot decide that he needs to be confined to a box. And again, the reason he was saying box instead of suitcase, in my opinion, is because a box is, a coffin essentially. And he did use the C word shortly after all of this. And then he raised another really interesting point. He started to talk about Dr. Harper, the defense's expert witness, and a lot of problems with her testimony, including the fact that she was basically taking everything at Sarah Boone's word. And he raised the issue again that she did not factor in the fact that excuse me, because I don't remember the official title of being an alcoholic, but she didn't factor alcoholism in. And there, as Dave Cacciatore said, that there's certain rule outs for BSS, and alcoholism is one of them, which has to be taken into consideration. And he said, even if she was triggered, it still goes to the imminency requirement. So they just kept hammering on these, and their points made a lot of sense. I'm looking at
Joel,
they
can we
play.
get... No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say this. So they played a video of George to try to humanize him. And he says in this video, he's like kind of being scolded by Sarah. And he says, "I'm going to go to court. I'm going to tell the judge it's all my fault." He said she has a 7-year-old son who she loves. She has a blind and deaf dog. If she sees animals in the street, she's going to stop to help them. And she asks a question. And this is where he says, "Yes, ma'am." And then she's directing exactly what he should say to the court, verbatim. And I forget the exact phrase, something like, "She's a wonderful person. There's no one better than me," whatever it was. She was telling him verbatim what to say, and he was parroting it. And he seemed like a real victim himself of BSS there. I think that was really poignant and profound with the jurors. COE, give me some questions.
Yeah, so this one's from Sharon Shipley. How about Sarah? Any reactions from her during the bat demonstration?
I could not see. I honestly could not see. I don't know, but I mean, the jurors were certainly interested in it. I can tell you that.
Okay, and by interested, what does that mean? Explain.
Like engaged, like watching and engaged. But COE, give me some rapid fire questions here, COE.
Okay, hold on, because I've also had.
I'm going to keep going on with
Okay.
while you're queue up a few questions, and while you're doing that, let me look here. So he did play a shorter clip of the suitcase video, and right after that, he referred to it, and I quote, as a makeshift coffin. Dave Cacciatore pointed out that his voice was getting weaker and weaker. So how in this interesting 11 minutes that they claim George threatened her, how was he so threatening? It also happens to be the portion of time where there was no video. It's hard to believe. And he made the point that his voice was weakening. He also talks about her changing stories, that she was drinking, that they were not drinking. She told everyone repeatedly that we're having fun that day. And suddenly he says 4.5 years later, she comes up with this other story that he threatened her. Fabulous job. Thank you so much. We really appreciate these super stickers. They help a ton. Joel, do you think the rebuttal made the case an easy one? I do. I mean, the rebuttal was fantastic. Before I get to the rebuttal, let me just go to James Owens. So James Owens was kind of pacing around like because there was a break between the state's closings and the defense's closing. So he was kind of pacing around like a fighter getting ready to go into the octagon. Had his head down in fight mode. He gets out there and he starts to like talk about, he says, "Hi, I'm James Owens. As you know, my client is Sarah Boone." Then he goes into this whole thing about where he's from, this tiny little town in the Panhandle. Basically trying to elicit some sort of empathy, I guess, from the jurors. And this is where there were a multitude of objections by the state. They were like, "What's this guy doing? He's not supposed to be like garnering sympathy for himself." And eventually they got on track there. So that was interesting. He said something very off-putting, I think, to the female jurors. He said, "I'm here with my partners, Tony Henderson, Kevin Beck, and with the girls." I mean, keep in mind, he's a Southern guy from the Panhandle, kind of old school. But if you've got women, 5 of them on the jurors to call, and these are grown women who are working for them, including Tony Henderson's daughter, calling them girls is probably not the best thing to call them. But you women in the chat would know better than me. Keeps going. He over and over he said, "I'm going to take my time. I have notes." Probably not great things to announce. He could not find his notes on multiple occasions and literally said, "I cannot find my notes." It was very awkward, very uncomfortable. Everyone was uncomfortable, and the jurors definitely were picking up on that because it was like, as awkward gets, and they knew he was disorganized at this point. Why he didn't have these things, point by point by point in a stack, I have no idea. COE, what's this question?
This is from Diane Matire. What did you think of prosecutor putting up her pictures instead of letting the defense do it first? This is that moment when the prosecutor took the
Brilliant.
defense
I
exhibits.
thought that was brilliant. Brilliant. Again, that was like a preemptive strike, right? So for those who did not see it in the openings, I'm sorry, closings, I'm tired. But in the closings, the state went first and he picked up one by one the defense's exhibits and held them up. And he said, "Just because you're going to see this, and just because you're going to see this, and just because you're going to see this." Fantastic. I thought it was really effective. And I thought it really brought it home. I'll actually be really surprised if we don't get a verdict tonight. And if we don't get a verdict fairly soon. I mean, they want to give the appearance, I think, that they're deliberating. Charlie Adelson, the last trial I covered, it was 3 hours with a dinner break included. This to me is way more clear. So I just can't imagine it taking very long. By the way, at the end of the day, when everything was over, I saw Sarah ask one of her attorneys, she said, "What do I do? Do I just stay here?" And right after that, the deputy came over and shackled her at the waist, shackled her hands, and brought her into the holding room next door. So she's not allowed to be in the courtroom. She is shackled up and waiting in a side room until there's a potential verdict. You're the let's see here. I'm
In the
looking.
meantime, Joel, here, IGG Rocks has a question. Do you think Sarah regrets going at the beginning of the defense instead of at the end?
Say that one more time.
Do you think Sarah regrets going at the beginning of when the defense started instead of at the end?
She didn't have a choice because she had to take the stand in order for them to figure out if they could invoke this whole battered spouse syndrome. And it was, I guess, required by the judge. Typically, and they talked about this in court, typically they would save her for last, which is obviously, for the defense, the most effective. But in this case, they were like hamstrung. They had their hands tied and she had to go first, which she did. And by the way, I don't even remember her testifying at this point. It happened so long ago. So, this is why I keep saying, like, the days have been very long. It's been 2 full weeks. These jurors are tired. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to very basic things. That video, the law requires an imminent threat. How was there an imminent threat if this guy's stuffed in a suitcase, zipped shut? And we're only hearing that it was open from her, no one else. And what I thought was fascinating, I'm just going to toss my notes down, COE, because I'm tired of looking at them, and you just can bring up questions. But what I thought was fascinating at the state's rebuttal to the defense in the closing arguments, Will J said, "I don't think he was hit with the bat when he was in the suitcase. I think he was hit with this bat while he was outside," which is a really strong statement to make. And he kept saying, "You don't have to believe anything Sarah Boone says," and made light of the fact that they were playing tag. He says she doesn't even know the rules because she tagged George, and instead of George hiding, she said she hid. So you've got to just take into question, which is the point he was bringing home, everything she is told. He said that her stories have changed multiple times. Dave Cacciatore said the same thing. And the only thing that's been consistent is realizing that George died that day, and also that she said they were having a perfectly good day. That has been the consistent statement all the way through. That is the thread that binds all of this. So I am so tired. I am so tired. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. What is it? I can't read the question.
Okay, so if you're just listening and not watching, the subscriber name is I'm So Tired. They're Joel's spirit animal. But their question is, did jurors see or acknowledge George's family, and did they avoid Sarah Boone? Throughout the trial, or at least today, you kept saying that the jurors were not making any eye contact with Sarah. Talk to us a little bit about what that was like.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed it every time they came in and out. It was a deliberate move to not look at Sarah. Almost like they were back in the, even though they're not allowed to talk about the case, but it was almost like they agreed, okay, we're not going to look at her. Because typically, like, you've got someone who's going to, like, stray just out of curiosity. Like, there's a murder defendant, you're going to want to look. But when they came in, it was very clear that they did not want to look at her, which is typically a good sign for the state. What's up, Tommy? Thank you. I appreciate that very much. And I can't even read the names, but thank you. It should say Harmony. I think I'm losing my eyesight. I might be blind by next week, COE. I don't know.
Steve Jackson here is asking a question. What was the reaction of the gallery when the judge got angry and threw out that one person with the cell phone today? As many of us know, there have been different cell phones going off throughout the trial. So it feels like it was just something that had been going on daily at this point.
Yeah, well, this was particularly disruptive. I forget exactly when it happened. It was in the morning session, maybe like 10:30, 11, and it was during a very kind of tense moment of, because in the morning they were going over jury instructions and they were kind of fighting over battered spouse and the imminent danger and all the laws applicable to that and all the tie-ins. And that's when the phone went off, and then he admonished the person, and then that person couldn't stop the phone, which is my biggest fear in life. And so it went off right afterwards. Like, he finished yelling at her basically, and then it rang again, like someone was calling her, and the judge said, "Get out." Like, he was not having it. He literally said, "Get out." And so that person had to leave. And it was uncomfortable. And obviously, everyone cranes. Anytime there's any noise in the gallery or anything that goes off, everyone cranes their neck. So the jurors are going to do that too. But Judge Kranick has amazing command of that courtroom. By the way, just a little like color from the courtroom. After they were off the record, the judge was still in the courtroom, and he was so nice to deputies, so nice to those students behind him. One sergeant walked in, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" Like, totally different, like, demeanor. Like, if you met him, like at a parent at a soccer game. He'd probably be like the nicest guy. And he comes across as nice and genuine. He's obviously got command and he's the judge. But when I got to see him after court, basically, he stole the robe and all that. Totally like laid back, just a real gentleman. I think a mensch, as we would say. What's this question, COE?
Daddy,
Hi,
There's turkey on the thighs.
how you
were
feeling,
those
V?
turkeys on the ties?
How you feeling?
She's good. So this is more color from the courtroom. Many people in chat were trying to figure out what was on the prosecutor's tie, and
You speaking like that, Mommy? That's not your normal voice. Your new voice.
okay, thank you, sweetie. And we decided that they were turkeys on the tie. So can you please confirm?
100% not turkeys, just weird patterns. I happened to be out there in the hallway when Detective Copsall was out there, and she was asking about the tie, not the patterns, but she's like, "No, nice tie." And he said something to the effect of, "Oh, this has been my closing arguments tie for the last few years." It's just kind of artwork and weird. He's definitely a little quirky like that. I gave the sock update, so there's always, by the way, I love it. Vita just docks the COE. I cannot read this question. That's a please
It's from
ask.
Sooner Gal 22. It says, please ask if Will and Owens were truly angry with each other.
Yes. Um, in that moment, I can't even remember what was happening. It was earlier in the day. I'm trying to remember. It was an argument over one of the instructions, and they got upset with each other. I don't think there's any love lost. However, to Will J's credit, once they were off the record and court, was adjourned for the jurors to go deliberate, Will J took out this giant, 2-liter bottle of water, kind of like Sarah Boone's wine bottle, and he very generously offered some to James Owens, who looked absolutely exhausted. And, you can see it. It's like an athletic competition. Like, they were going at it. But afterwards, I think the state felt very confident in their case. And it was, the dust had settled and they were talking to each other. Again, Detective Copsall was there with her partner, Detective Lowen. There were other people supporting the state. I don't know who they are. They could be law enforcement, they could be other prosecutors just coming in to sort of watch closings and, give Will J and Dave Cacciatore a little bit of a boost that they may have needed. What's your read on the jury? Again, it's 5 women, 1 male. The male is like very serious and taking it all in. The women, the DV juror, she had the notebook with it's like a reporter's notebook with a spiral on the top, not on the side. And she was furiously taking notes. And at certain points, I would see her flipping over the top and like literally doing this and like going through notes. So she is definitely like serious, and she's definitely taking copious notes. I also did notice at one point, and again, I can't remember the exact moment, where she also looked over at Sarah Boone and just gave her like a stare of death. And listen, when they first picked her, number one, I couldn't understand how they could pick anyone with DV to be a juror. And I thought then it was a surefire win for the defense because Sarah Boone is a DV victim. But when I spoke to some attorneys, they said, no, like a true DV victim might see right through Sarah. And that's what I think is actually going on. So it's interesting, not what I would expected, but we'll see. The one that I guess concerns me the most, but I think a little less so now, is the hot pink blouse. She's definitely, in my opinion, going to be, it's either her or the DV, I think, are going to be the jury 4-person. I can't see anyone else being the 4-person besides the 2 of them. And again, she was eager, hot pink blouse, to be on the jury. So I just don't know for what reason. I just don't. And some of her tells have been weird. The only kind of saving grace, I think, is that she was sitting right next to grumpy comb-over juror, and that juror for sure, if he wasn't an alternate, would be voting guilty, and she was very friendly with him. So they seem to be on the same level there, the same possible thought process. COE, next question here.
Yep, this is from Kaviana A. What was the most jaw-dropping moment out of the last few days that you can think of off the top of your head?
What was he? Yesterday morning. What was it?
They were the videos.
Yeah, but in the morning it was something totally unexpected. Oh, I thought the most tense and bizarre moment in this was when the witness for the state first got up and kind of changed her story, saying that she didn't think she had BSS and she did think she had battered spouse syndrome, and they went back and forth, and James Owens blew a gasket, and then Will J flipped out on James Owens. It was very tense yesterday morning during that kind of period of time. But today also with the video and the mom breaking down, I mean, emotionally, I think that had a much bigger impact on these jurors because there's no way they didn't hear or see it.
Next question from Ma Green saying, love this live reporting, Joel. Were any jurors losing interest during Owen's rambling? I actually dozed off.
All of them. All of them. They tuned it out. I really believe that. I mean, there were so many moments. For a guy that wanted this as badly as he did, and by the way, Tony Henderson's daughter is across from me in this rotunda, so I don't want to get speared by anybody. But during his closings, it was rambling. It was just all over the place. It was not convincing. It wasn't coherent. And he literally said multiple times, I can't find my notes. And he would say, I'm going to show you some videos. Or he would say, I'm going to talk a lot, like all very unnecessary. Compare that or contrast that to the state. I mean, they're like boom, 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 boom. It's like right and tight, like it was just so pared down. Owens was just like everywhere, all over the place. And honestly, it was getting hot in the courtroom, and those jurors were literally on the brink of dozing off, as were a lot of people. It was just hard to follow, and it was difficult in there for him at that moment. I think he was struggling, and he kind of knew it.
And Joel, Coffee First was sort of asking about that, as is Nan R. They're both asking about that moment. Well, really, it was repeated moments of him shuffling papers. And Nan R is asking, I thought it looked like Owens had plenty of time to get his papers in order. Did I see this wrong?
I mean, he wasn't there for the entire morning for the kind of the arguing over the instructions. And then there was an hour and a half lunch, and he wasn't there for any of that. So I just presumed that he was preparing his closings, but obviously not in an efficient way. COE, you know this. I don't want to dox him, but I will. But we used to work with Craig S. in Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah,
And
don't say names and then give
Craig
the
S. I didn't say his last
Yeah,
name, but
okay,
his
continue.
desk reminded me of Owen's closings. And somewhere I have a picture of Craig S.'s desk. Just imagine a desk with literally just 25 years of reporting notebooks and papers and old candy bars and baseball cards, everything just strewn across a desk that's been sitting there. That visual is what reminded me of James Owens' closing. Like if I had to draw a painting, if someone said draw a painting or an image of what James Owens' closing was like, I would draw or paint Craig S.'s desk. I love you, Craig. Go ahead, COE.
Okay, so this next one is from Becky D. How did the jury react to the multiple prosecution objections at the start of Owen's closing?
Say that one more time. Had the jury
How
react
did
to
the jury
multiple-
react to the objections at the beginning of Owen's closing? If you remember the first minute, there were like
Yeah,
five.
it was like 8 objections I didn't count, but like back to back to back to back to back. But I mean, I think the jurors got it because it was very awkward. I mean, he was like, I'm from Milton. It's a small town. Like, this isn't about you. This is about your client. This is about the defendant. It's about Sarah Boone. And then he actually used the phrase, I think, which a lawyer can never do, especially in closings. You can't give your opinion. And Will J just bounced up. So that was interesting, but I think the jury understood that he had a job and he was doing it. It was disruptive for sure. There's no doubt that it wasn't disruptive, but it was necessary. He had to do it. COE.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you were gonna keep going.
Got to be on the ball, COE.
Okay, well,
COE, thank you for asking. I have not eaten today, in case you're wondering. It wasn't a blueberry muffin. It was a banana, by the way, amazing. It was a banana muffin that I had at 8:20 a.m. and I've not eaten since. So I'm just letting you know that.
all right. Well, I've had so much food, so I've been eating for both of us.
I just saw a question there. Do you think SB is going to basically claim ineffective assistance of counsel? I mean, anything is possible with her. If this does not come back guilty, I would say that it is going to be on this, maybe not on the same level, but it's similar to a Casey Anthony verdict. It would be, right now, this is a very high profile case, but if it came back not guilty, it would become like a case for the ages. I think it would be insane. I just can't see it happening.
Well, and this is before we get to that question. People in the chat are saying they feel for you because you look exhausted. And I'm sure it is exhausting, but just talk to us a little bit about the mood. You guys were in court for what, 11 hours, 10 hours straight?
Yeah.
The jurors were there too. So talk to us just about like what it's like to sit there for 8 hours straight, because I assume it's exhausting. And now you sort of have a break, but now the jurors have their hardest job.
By the way, the COE, every night when we talk, she tries to compete with me that she had a longer, more difficult day because
I'm
she's
not
got the
saying
kids. She got to
Joel,
take them to baseball. She got to take them to soccer. It's long.
gymnastics,
What's
tennis.
that?
I said and gymnastics and tennis and
Yes.
tutoring.
So the days are incredible. Today was by far the longest day, and it's not over. I think it's funny. I turned my iPad off already because I'm so conditioned to not have electronics on. But I don't know what time it is right now because my cell phone is my camera. But
It's 8:26.
yeah, so we're an hour and 14 minutes into deliberations. This is probably going to go, my guess, till like 10 o'clock, even 10:30. And then I think they're going to come back with a verdict. That would be my guess. Abbey Crossing, the coverage is second to none. Thank you. STS is truly taking everything to the next level. Thank you.
Sorry,
Rock on friends. Thank you. Do me a favor, everyone in the chat. If you could hit the like button, I would love it. If you can subscribe, I would love it. But the biggest gift is if you can share the show with friends, so other people find out about it. It was really nice. There was a couple people in the gallery today who just came up and were like, we're huge fans of the show. And it was really nice to hear. One is an attorney. The other one is just someone who lives in Orlando that came out. So very nice to see people, and we're all really appreciative of the support. Sarah was happy. She repeatedly said, she's asked every day, are you happy with your representation? And she says, very. Like, she doesn't just say yes. She's always got like a qualifier, like very happy, or thank you, Tommy, man. You should try eating and sleeping. It's like, yeah, I know. I should also try putting my glasses on because I can't see. Tommy's all over the Diddy story, which I'm going to jump back into next week if I get to next week. Thank you so much for this. This is from Leslie. I really appreciate it. Again, I've said it, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but the super chats help a lot. Kathy's been given a bunch. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it greatly. So yeah, the days are really long. You see people, like excited to stand up. By the way, when I think it was when it was Will J, he was doing something with a suitcase where everyone had to kind of stand up, and the jurors were so happy, like so excited that they had a moment to stand up and stretch. And that's pretty much, that sums it up. That's what it's like. Like right now, like my back is broken, and you're sitting in uncomfortable chairs, and it's a very tense environment because you've got two teams going at it, and a very serious judge in a very serious courtroom about a really serious case. It's not like sitting in a movie theater. Like I think everyone's body is just physically tense from what is happening around them. Just the incredible. What's the word I'm looking for? There's just I can't think of the words. I'm too tired. But there's a courtroom like demeanor, and everyone's just on their best behavior, and it's exhausting because most people are not like that all the time. So, from I can't read this one. COE. Do
Hi
you think?
there, Cecilia. It says, do you think she regrets not taking the plea now?
So my short answer for this is Sarah Boone is not like most of us, like 99.9% of us. If it was me, I'd be sobbing on that table. When it was all over today, she was like happy and like happy-go-lucky, like, oh, I'm going back to the room. Oh, I'm gonna come back out. Like, Ms. Boone, this is the rest of your life, like we're talking about. Like, she just doesn't process it like a normal human being does. So I don't think she regrets not taking the plea deal. I think she's going to. And I think when she does, she's going to be writing Judge Kranick or whoever it is 97-page handwritten letters about how she was screwed over and that, could she please have the plea deal now? But it's too late. I mean, why she didn't do it is just beyond me. Thank you for this super sticker. Appreciate it.
There was a comment up earlier from Ida Shaw that I took down. I did see the question, and I think I remember it, sort of. Ida was asking about what you or the jurors, probably not you, were probably the jurors' reaction to the moment in Owen's closing argument when he was focused on DV and specifically was talking about how men are taught not to hit a woman,
Oh, yeah.
and he's focusing on that angle.
Again, that sort of reminded me of the, introducing his team and saying, well, I'm with the girls too. It didn't play well to the room because men also can be victims. It's a different world, that we live in now than it was, I think, when James Owens was growing up. And I think it fell flat. And in their rebuttal, they picked up on that. They're quick. I mean, I have such an admiration for these attorneys now because it really is a game of chess and you're doing stuff on the fly. And I could tell that Will J kind of seized that moment and said in so many words, I don't have the exact verbiage, but in so many words, he said she was the aggressor, that George was the victim. And you don't have to believe her stories. And you know what? I think the jurors are heeding those warnings from Will J.
Hold on, I'm hearing verdict. Hold on.
Are you? Well, I better get my ass up. If we had someone else, I'm going to go now because
No,
I see.
no. Yeah.
No?
Yes or no?
No, what?
Are you talking to me?
No, well, I just saw Tony Henderson's daughter get very animated.
Yes.
Like,
Go. Verdict. I just got a tap. Okay. He left. Oh, you can go. Am I wrong?
oh, wait. I can't. Hold on.
Just go. I'll
running
end it.
off.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Panicked. Okay, well, thank you to Joel, who has obviously been there since this morning. We appreciate you guys being here. We are hearing that there is a verdict. I just got an alert from some people there at the court since Joel was obviously with us and wasn't there in the room. So I think that is accurate since they're there. We're going to watch here and be on standby. I'm sure it's going to take a little while for everyone to come back in. So I'm just going to mute myself, but we will be here waiting and on standby. And as soon as there's any audio and people are back here, we will pump that up for you guys, and you guys will be the first to know. All right. Thanks so much for being with us, and stick around. Apparently, there is a verdict, and we will air it here on STS. Thank you. Also, since I'm still here, I just want to say thank you to everyone for all of these super chats. I know Joel didn't get to all of them. Thank you to Connie. Thank you to Penny Green. Pat Brooks became a member. So many of you guys became members and subscribers. Thank you to each and all of you. Thank you to Kelly D for the generous super chat. To Cakespoo, thank you so much. She's also a Discord member. To No27, to be here now, to turn the page 2025. Thank you to all of you, and thank you to everyone who has been sending things throughout the day. We appreciate all of you guys being here. If you're new, please remember to subscribe to the channel. Also, please remember to hit the like button. I go back and I review our shows with the number of likes, and it sort of gives me an assessment of what shows were popular and what shows people liked, so we know what kind of trial coverage you guys enjoy. So please remember to hit the like button. And again, a verdict has been reached. Stand by. Big shout out and thank you to Space Coast, who immediately popped this up for us. So thank you to everyone who has been here with us all day, and we're on standby. Thank you to Chris B. Thank you to Lisa H4, to Pat Brooks, Deb O, Becky Ireland. Again, thank you to everyone. We are on standby. If you're just joining us, there is breaking news. There is a verdict reached, and we'll be bringing it to you right now. Thanks so much for being here. We're just going to let it play out. I don't know if Joel is coming out after the verdict is reached. We're just going to wing it. If you're just joining us, welcome. If you're new, please remember to subscribe, hit the like button. We are hearing a verdict has been reached in the Sarah Boone trial. We're on standby. It looks like they're just walking into the courtroom now, so we'll let it play out. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. I also wanted to say we did do a poll earlier in the day. I didn't have time to put it up, but I think 35% of you did think that there would be a verdict within the first 3 hours. So 35% of you were correct. For those asking about the poll, it was within the first 3 hours or by 9 p.m. So the majority of you guys thought that there would be a verdict by 9 p.m. But then there was also an option within the first 3 hours. So I guess technically you guys are all right because the timing got pushed back. So technicality on my poll writing. So all of you guys that voted either for the first 3 hours or by 9 p.m. are correct.
second. We are on the record in case number 2020 CF 2603, State of Florida versus Sarah Boone. State, let me get your appearance for the record.
Chief Castro on behalf of the state. William J. for the state.
Defense.
James Owens for Ms. Boone. Kevin Beck for Sarah Boone. Mr. Henderson's not going to be here for the verdict.
Okay, all right. Ms. Boone is seated at counsel's table, wearing the same clothing from this morning. Yes, Mr. Beck.
Judge, they've got her in chains and they've got her in the ankle handcuffs, so she can't go anywhere. I'm just asking, we would like to rise during the jury coming in. I'm asking if there's any way we can take off the handcuffs and the waist chain so that the jury wouldn't see it in case there's something wrong with the verdict form or, there's an issue, which sometimes happens, but that's my position.
Okay. I've been advised by the sheriff that during the reading of the verdict, due to Ms. Boone's status as an inmate, their leg irons and the cuffs are to be attached.
She's going to stay seated.
That's fine.
Mr. Beck's going to stay seated.
I would ask for us all to remain seated, and could you remind everybody in the gallery that there should be no emotional reactions?
I was just about to address that, sir. Thank you very much. All right, members of the jury, my understanding, or members of the gallery, good evening. My understanding is that the jury in this matter has reached a verdict. I don't know what it's going to be until it's read. If you are unable to contain yourself emotionally and you're going to react in any way, be it in joy or in sadness, I'm going to ask you politely to excuse yourself at this time. There cannot be any emotional outbursts when the verdict is read. Does everybody understand that? I see everybody nodding their heads. Okay. State, are we ready to bring in our jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense, are we ready to bring in our jury?
Yes, Judge.
All right, let's go ahead and bring in our jury. Everyone will remain seated.
Your answer?
State, do you recognize our jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense, do you recognize our jury? All right, members of the jury, you may be seated. Thank you. Members of our jury, good evening. I understand that you've come to a verdict in this case.
Yes.
If you could please hand the verdict form to the deputy, please. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, if you could please publish the verdict.
In the Circuit Court of the Ninth Judicial Circuit and in Orange County, Florida, case number 2020 CF 2603, the state of Florida versus Sarah Boone. Verdict. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the second degree as charged in the information. So say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, on this 25th day of October 2024. The form has been signed by the foreperson.
Madam Clerk, please poll our jury.
Juror seat number 1, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror seat number 2, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror seat number 3, is this your true
Yes,
and
it
correct
is.
verdict? Juror seat number 4, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror seat number 5, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror seat number 6, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
Members of our jury, again, I want to thank you for your time, your sacrifice, and your attention in this matter. I know that we spent almost 2 weeks together and it was not taken lightly, and I really appreciate the time and the effort and the sacrifice that you put into this case. I want to advise you now of your final instruction. Members, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for your time and your consideration in this case. I also wish to advise you of some very special privileges enjoyed by jurors. No juror can ever be required to talk about the discussions that occurred in the jury room except by court order. For many centuries, our society has relied upon juries for consideration of difficult cases. We have recognized for hundreds of years that a jury's deliberations, discussions, and votes should remain their private affair as long as they wish it. Therefore, the law gives you a unique privilege not to speak about the jury's work. Although you are at liberty to speak to anyone about your deliberations, you are also at liberty to refuse to speak to anyone. A request to discuss either your verdict or your deliberations may come from those who are simply curious, from those who might seek to find fault with you, from the media, from the attorneys, or elsewhere. It will be up to you to decide whether to preserve your privacy as a juror. With that, members of the jury, again, I thank you for your service. I'm going to ask you return to the deliberation room. I'll be back there shortly with your jury certificates, and thank you.
Go ahead.
Ms. Boone, the jury has spoken in this matter and has found you guilty of murder in the second degree. The court adjudicates you guilty of murder in the second degree. As this is your first felony conviction, you are entitled to a pre-sentencing investigation by the Department of Corrections. Mr. Owens, are you seeking that in this case?
Yes.
Okay. State, I will order the Department of Corrections to prepare the pre-sentencing investigation. State, for the purposes of sentencing, do you anticipate eliciting any testimony from, be it the victim's family?
2 or 3 victim impact statements, sir.
Okay. Mr. Owens, do you plan on presenting any evidence during the course of the sentencing hearing, sir?
Probably some testimony from Dr. Harper.
Okay. All right. How long do you think, State, that you would need?
You mean timing wise, or are we thinking?
A quantum of time, sir. Yeah, well, normally it takes about 30 days or so. I'm confirming with Anita as to availability. I just want to know from your side of the ledger, how much time? Okay, 15 minutes. How much time do you think you're going to need to produce anything from your side of the ledger, sir? Mr. Owens?
I'd say 30 minutes,
Okay.
30 to 45.
So if we set this for an hour, that would be sufficient.
Parties agree.
Okay.
State agrees.
Is that sufficient, Mr. Owens?
Yes.
Okay, all right, give me a moment. Ms. Barrios is checking. Just give us a moment. We can set this matter for 1:30 in the afternoon for sentencing on December 2. State, is that acceptable? It's a Monday.
I had a status hearing, but I'll make it work.
I can move it to later if necessary.
I'm co-counsel on it. I'll make it work.
Okay, defense. Yes, sir.
That's Monday, December 2 at 1:30.
Yes, sir.
I can be here.
Ma'am, you've been adjudicated guilty. I now remand you into the custody of the Orange County Jail pending sentencing on December 2 at 1:30. State, anything else we need to address?
No, Behalf of the state.
Defense. All right, thank you very much. We're off the record.
All right, so if you just missed that, there is breaking news. The verdict was reached and Sarah Boone was found guilty. We do have Ryan Vesio, who is hopping on to give us a quick 10 to 15 minute analysis. We are going to have him hopping on any minute. I don't know whether or not Joel is going to come back out and speak to us as well. We're sort of just winging it and seeing who we can get. So just stand by with us. But yeah, we just heard Sarah Boone found guilty. The verdict was reached fairly quickly. And again, this is the highest charge that she could have received. Joel reminding us in the chat that sentencing is roughly 39 days away. A few minutes ago, they panned over to show you George Torres's family. And Joel said that George's brother started crying when the verdict was read out loud. Hey, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, good evening.
So breaking news just came in. You actually just missed Sarah as she was walking out of the courtroom right now. She was found guilty of second-degree murder. This was a very fast turnaround, 1 hour and 29 minutes. Does that surprise you?
It does a little bit. It's good to see that with a verdict of this length, it's likely that the jury pretty much had their minds made up and wanted to go through everything. I did expect that this was going to be longer, but obviously it's the outcome that a lot of people were looking for, and I think it's the right outcome based upon what we've seen.
And Ryan, obviously, we were there today watching everything. It was a very long, drawn out closing. Do you think that's what resonated with the jurors? I mean, 1 hour and 29 minutes, I think, is faster than many people assumed it would be. Do you think there was one particular moment that really resonated with them and could have impacted having such a short verdict?
Well, I think the the state's rebuttal really in pointing out with the use of the baseball bat and the suitcase and the likelihood that George's injuries and all of the blunt force trauma was likely caused even before the suitcase, I think was a really compelling argument and explanation. In the end, the deliberations took less than half of the time that we all sat through closings today. So oftentimes, trial lawyers think they know where the jury is at, but in the end, it seems as if the jury was pretty set in what they thought happened in this case, and we saw that through a pretty quick verdict.
And most of the people here watching are saying that they're not surprised, that they were hoping for justice for George, and they do believe this is the right verdict. What does she face now in sentencing?
So the bottom of the sentencing guidelines will be 22 and a half years, for which she'll be required to serve at least 85% of that amount, which equates to roughly 19 years, 18 to 19 years. With the credit that she's received in the jail already, roughly she'll be incarcerated for at least 15 years if 15 additional years if the court gives the lowest permissible sentence. However, Judge Cranick could sentence her to life in prison. And in Florida, life is life because there is no parole.
And what does it say about having such a fast deliberation? I mean, I don't know if there's like a typical amount of jurors to deliberate, but this is obviously, I think, fast by any standard.
This was a lot faster than most people anticipated. In these types of cases, oftentimes jurors focus on particular facts. When you're entrenched into a case, either as the attorney or a detective or a defense attorney, or even some of your viewers who watch crime series a lot, sometimes we tend to overanalyze and put too much importance on too many facts. In this case, this very simply could have come down to the videotape, which has sensationalized this case so much. And the fact that we got to hear George in his last moments. However, Sarah likely went too far in trying to paint George as being completely different during those 11 minutes that there was no tape.
And Ryan, what's the process now? People are asking what happens to Sarah Boone from now until sentencing.
So she will go back to her cell, her lonely cell that she's been asking for a companion for in the Orange County Jail until sentencing on December 2nd. At that time, once she is sentenced, within about 2 weeks, she'll be sent to the Florida Department of Corrections Reception Center. It's customary that incoming defendants will remain at the reception center for about 30 to 60 days before they are classified and sent to one of the 60 plus prisons in the state of Florida.
And one of our viewers here, Lee T, is asking what's involved in the pre-sentencing investigation.
So the Department of Corrections staff will interview Sarah. They'll interview friends and family of Sarah. They will conduct a background search into her education, her jobs. They're likely to talk to her ex-husband. The Department of Corrections will also look some into George Torres and his family and his background. Ultimately, after they conduct their interviews, the pre-sentence investigation will conclude with those findings, along with a recommendation from the Department of Corrections to the court on what they believe the sentence should be. Oftentimes, those recommendations are non-specific. And in other instances, when they are, oftentimes the court will not always follow those recommendations for higher or lower, because it's the court's job, who sat through all of the testimony, who handled the case. Judge Cranick is in the best position to decide how long Sarah Boone will be incarcerated for.
All right, great. And we actually have a press conference going on right now. So Ryan, if it's all right with you, I'm going to let you go back to enjoy your evening, and I'm going to try to get up this press conference right now.
Sounds great. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thanks so much.
You know, obviously, she felt like she didn't intend to kill George, and that this was just a circumstance because they were both intoxicated. Things happened that, you know, it was just really unintentional act. So I think she felt bad about any kind of a murder conviction or pleading to any kind of a murder, that she was somehow criminally responsible for George's death. And I think that's where her mindset was. And, you know, I think she would have gone to trial even without lawyers. You know, she was ready to go to trial pro se. I think she was happy we came in. We worked as hard as we could. We had about 45 days to get ready, and we did it all that we could. So I think she feels good about our efforts. We put everything out on the table, just like any other contest. You know, you do the very best you can, and then you have to accept, you know, the decision by the jury. We respect the jury and appreciate their time and attention on the case.
Will you be representing her on her appeal?
No, I'll be representing her at her sentencing, but not the appeal. I think she would qualify since she's indigent for court-appointed appellate counsel. And those guys, that's all they do is appellate work. And those are probably the best lawyers to handle something like that. But we're, as I said, really disappointed. Sarah is kind of in shock, but you know, we respect the jury's decision. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hi, guys. So this is the COE. I'm waiting to hear whether or not Joel is hopping back on or if he's done. Just stand by as I get that answer from him, and then I will let you guys know. But if you missed the breaking news, Sarah Boone was found guilty. That was just her attorney who was saying that Sarah is in shock and that Sarah is disappointed. Again, I'm just trying to figure out whether or not Joel is going to hop on here for a few minutes or if he's done. So stand by, and I will let you guys know in 1 minute.
Yeah, sorry.
It's my big head fitting in all these lenses. That's what we're saying. Okay.
We got some shoulders on that.
All right. Everybody ready?
Yes.
All right. All right. So today, as many of you know, Sarah Boone was convicted of second-degree murder of her boyfriend, Jorge Torres Jr. You know, these events stem from an incident from February 23rd of 2020, where she zipped her boyfriend up in a suitcase in what she claimed to be a game of hide and seek. And 2 videos were introduced from her where he was begging for his life, and a horrific turn of events. And she didn't try to let him out. She didn't do anything to help him. She just went upstairs and went to sleep. And so this is a very horrific homicide. Nobody really should have to endure this type of, you know, struggle and fight for their lives and have to die alone, you know, begging for their last breath inside of a suitcase like this. And the jury did amazing work. I'm thankful for our chief of Homicide, Will J., and our and Assistant State Attorney, Dave Cacciatore. They did amazing work. Some of you caught me in the courtyard. I was like, I get briefings about it every single day about what they've been doing. But we're excited that they were able to bring this home with a victory because today justice was served with the conviction of Sarah Boone for this very horrific homicide that occurred. And so if you have any questions, I'm going to turn it over to them.
So strong. Oops, sorry.
The defense's argument, clearly the jury did not buy
Correct.
it. The argument was self-defense and battered specimen.
Correct. And so we're going to turn over to Will and Dave to ask all specific questions as to all the defenses, and it's because they did all the great work, so they deserve all the
Could
good
you
credit.
step up a little bit? Thank you. Yeah, so like the defense, can we speak about that? I know the jury obviously did not buy that. They came down with a second-degree murder charge.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, how does that make you feel? Did you get a chance to speak to the family, right, Torres?
Yes, we're very happy to gain some closure for the Torres family and some justice for George.
Strong closing arguments from the both of you today. What do you think, like she said, this case means for the family and getting justice for George Torres?
I think after 4.5 years and the numerous delays, I think they were finally just happy to see this case go to trial and be able to put this one in the books.
What do you think the appropriate sentence should be?
We'll reserve comment to the sentencing hearing.
Do you expect the verdict to come back that quickly? I think it was an hour and 20-something minutes, very fast.
Should never have expectations.
What do you think about the case law with respect to Martinez? I know there was a strongly worded letter you all signaled you would be sending. Is that right for judicial review higher up?
Can't really talk about future legal arguments.
How was it in the courtroom between you and James Owens? There was obviously moments of tension and then also moments of levity. Was this different than a typical battle that you go into?
I wouldn't say it was different than a different relationship than with most defense attorneys.
What would you say to the jurors who were here for about 2 weeks on this case? It was a long jury selection and then, of course, a lot of evidence to look at and all of that. What would you want to say to them?
Just thank them for their service.
Will, did you know that it was George Torres' mother who broke down in court today and that was the reason for the bit of an outburst?
I was made aware afterwards. It happens in these cases.
Do you have a chance to talk to her and say something to her?
I have not yet.
How about you, Dave?
I spoke to her along with the rest of the Torres family after the verdict, and just listened to them.
A strong rebuttal yesterday from you guys. What do you think that evidence showed the jurors and meant for this case?
Not going to really talk about the evidence.
Final question from me is, are you stunned that you did not take that plea deal?
It's not for us to say.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Sorry. You guys been here for a long time.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming. Thank you for covering the case.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That was just a press conference there. So per usual, after big breaking news like this, both the state and the defense were just giving their statements on what they thought. Obviously, the defense a little bit more verbose than the state side. And if you missed it there, that was Joel asking several questions in the background. We couldn't see him, but we could hear him. Again, breaking news today. Sarah Boone was found guilty of second-degree murder. I'm still waiting to hear back from Joel on whether or not he's coming back. I heard we do have a best guest who is hopping on in a few minutes just to give us a quick 10-minute wrap. So I will wait for them to come on, and then at that point, I will let you guys know whether or not Joel is hopping on. So yeah, I'll let you guys know within the next minute or so. So stand by. Thanks so much. Hey Josh, we are live. You're on air right now.
Hey, how are you?
How are you? Thanks for coming
Good.
here and being here with
No,
us.
of course. I didn't hear sound at first, so I thought, uh-oh, am I in the wrong place?
Yeah, no, you're in the right place, and this is a hot mic, so we are live. We're waiting for Joel to hop on. But until Joel hops on, obviously the big news: verdict reached. Honey, please be quiet. Sorry, I have my daughter. The big news here is the verdict was reached, and she was found guilty of second-degree murder. First off, what's your reaction?
I'm not shocked. I mean, I know that her defense created some questions, and I think they did an admirable job. There he is. But end of the day, you left a man to die, to suffocate to death slowly inside of a space so small, it sounds like absolute medieval torture. Jurors are just not going to let you walk out the door a free person after watching that.
Yeah. Josh, are you surprised it was like an hour and 21-minute deliberation? That's a half a Charlie Adelson deliberation. You think this jury had their mind made up, days ago?
I think they were probably making up their minds over the course of the trial. It wasn't a super long trial. It's 2 weeks long, but end of the day, the facts are not all that complicated. She left him inside of a suitcase to die. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that there was an extenuating circumstance? Do you feel that self-defense was involved? I mean, when they first brought up this theory of self-defense based upon battered spouse syndrome, I think a lot of people's reaction was, you got to be kidding me. And I think that probably was the juror's reaction. And like I said, I think the defense did an admirable job with what they had. But end of the day, this is a horrific crime, and somebody's got to be held responsible for it. So I'm not all that shocked that it was quick. It's a little, I guess, how long was he going to keep him there? Because it's a Friday and nobody wants to come back on a Monday.
There's a rule here: deliberations can't go past 9. But since it was a Friday, he asked the chief judge. He gave him permission to go to 10 or 10:30. But they were back well before that. And the minute we heard there was a verdict, we pretty much knew it was going to be guilty, just on what charges. I just want to let everybody know a couple things. Number one, George Torres' family was all gathered. None of them wanted to speak to the media. I understand it completely. The media gave them their space, but they kind of exited, and I noticed a few of them were crying. I caught a moment where Dave Cacciatore, with the state, he actually went up to Ms. Torres, and she reached out. She extended her hand, and I heard her say, "Thank you so much." And he's a very it's interesting because he's so loud in the courtroom, but very, very quiet when he's not in the courtroom. So James Owens just had a little media scrum. I've sent it to the COE. We can figure out where to put it, but I'll tell you basically what he said.
We took it live.
Took it live. Really? How'd you take it live? Oh, through. Oh, okay. So you have it. Okay.
We heard you. Good job, but keep going.
Oh, so yeah. I mean, James Owens basically said that he's incredibly disappointed. Sarah's incredibly disappointed. He made kind of understated comments about how she's opinionated. I think that's the word he used. I flat out asked him about the plea deal. And that's when he said, she's got strong opinions. So you could tell that he probably urged her to take the plea deal. I asked if she regretted it. I don't know exactly what his answer was, but obviously he regrets it. And I think she regrets it. Probably a huge mistake. And then we just got done talking with 2 prosecutors and the district attorney for this area, the state attorney here. And the bottom line there is state was very quiet, very subdued. They just basically 1 or 2 word answers. I asked him about the plea deal, not much there. I asked him about the tension in the courtroom between James Owens and Will, and he basically just said, he deferred it over to Dave, who said this is just like, going into battle in a courtroom, and basically no hard feelings. So it was very kind of political at the end of the day. Yeah, Josh, I don't know how much of the day did you get to watch the closings, or?
I watched some of it. you know, I mean, nothing was said that that I felt was some sort of unforeseen gotcha that nobody kind of realized was going to be an argument. Like I said, end of the day, it is, as much as this trial became or seemed to become complicated, it really comes down to a very simple question of, you know, do you feel there was any justification whatsoever for her actions that evening? And we're not talking about several different defendants. We're not talking about crimes that took place over several days. We're talking about an incident over one night. And it's really the act of walking away, leaving this man inside of a suitcase. Does she need to be held responsible for that? And end of the day, I think they made the right decision.
Yeah, I think it was pretty straightforward to the jurors. Today was an interesting day, Josh, for a number of reasons, but they started closings in the afternoon. As you know, the state went first. I don't know if this is a typical tactic of prosecutors, but I thought it was fantastic. Dave Cacciatore basically on a screen put up the law, for the elements of the crime, right? And then he was giving the jurors specific examples of these elements of the crime. I thought it was really fascinating. He was essentially, and I've said this earlier, it was almost like he was handling their deliberations. He was saying, was there an imminent threat? And he showed why there wasn't. Was it a depraved mind? And he showed why it was. And he just gave point, counterpoint, point, or not point, counterpoint, but point, example, point, example. And I thought that was really effective. In contrast to James Owens, he got up there, Josh, and was just all over the place. I mean, he literally said, I don't know where my notes are. I can't find my notes. A couple times, happened more than 2 or 3 times where he had to go and search, hunt down notes. He told the jurors a couple times that he was going to take a long time. It was a little bizarre. What do you make of that kind of courtroom execution, I guess, by a defense attorney?
Well, I've taken him to all through this be a little folksy, and he kind of I don't know if it's an act or just the way he is, but he kind of embraces that aw shucks, I'm just up here doing a job, kind of I'm not this slick, polished, high-priced attorney. I'm just up here trying to tell you people how you should view this whole thing. I will say too that the defense usually thrives in the space of confusion. So the prosecutor did an excellent job in making it less confusing. They want to spell it out so the jurors have no question. I've seen prosecutors to the point of showing them the verdict form and saying, this is the box you should check, and here's where your signature should go. It's almost like they're walking them through their taxes. They're so deliberate about it. So it was good that he was clear. The defense can be confusing because if the jurors are confused, fantastic. Confusion means they haven't reached a verdict beyond a reasonable doubt. But it sounds like the confusion here may have been a little bit part of that lovable, befuddled attorney act, and perhaps maybe that's not an act. That's a little bit just him.
Yeah. I'm probably wading into dangerous territory, but there was a motion filed the other night by the state, basically questioning a potential conflict of interest between Sarah Boone and her entire defense team because they're doing this pro bono, and they are paying the only person that they are saying that they're paying is the private investigator. Then a few sources told me, and I said this on Ashley Banfield, that James Owens, in lieu of payment, had asked for rights to her story, basically, for a movie, for a book. When he saw me in court the next day, he was not happy with me. So he gave me a statement basically saying it's categorically false. But then in court today, it came up. This motion actually came up. I think it was after the verdict. It was, or not after the verdict, or maybe it was very late in the day, and the state attorney, Will J, basically said, "Look, I don't want Sarah Boone to basically come back and say, because I offered such and such, that she felt bound in this relationship, this situation, He wanted to make sure there was no conflict. And then he basically asked the attorneys one by one, and James Owens gave an interesting kind of answer, which was a non-answer. And then they went to Tony Henderson, the second chair, and he got up and he said, I don't know anything about any of this. Like, he was removing himself from the entire thing. And then the third lawyer, who's from New Mexico, had a very strange reaction too. Like, he kind of laughed and then got up and said, this is attorney-client privilege, but I don't think there's anything happening. But it was not like, yes, this did not happen. It was very, they were very circuitous in their answers. What do you make of that?
Well, I have heard of fee arrangements like that. I've never myself been a part of it, obviously, but never even spoken to anyone who's directly done it. I think it's asking for trouble because, I mean, anytime you're somehow tying your compensation to I mean, if you want to get into the weeds on this, wouldn't it benefit him? There might be an argument that it might benefit him depending on the results of the case. And so anytime you get into this thing where it's not just a straightforward fee agreement or a straightforward, I am representing you for free. Now, I don't know if that means it's legal or not. I'm not trying to make that assessment at all, but I do think it's getting into very dicey territory when you come up with these creative ways of getting compensated. But it could have been just kind of a informal agreement between them, and none of them want to get really close to it. It is attorney-client privileged. I mean, that is one of the things that you don't have to divulge. But well, I don't want to push you on where you got the information from, but it is to me asking for trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it was circulating widely within the courtroom yesterday, or right after it was filed very late in the day. I think the day before. So people were talking about it. Again, he was very, very defensive about it.
And
you know how you attorneys are, Josh. So
right. And I was going to say, is this the type of client you really want to get into a sticky situation when it comes to fees on? I mean, this if she's worried about her slapping some sort of, ineffective assistance of counsel or conflict of interest suit against him down the road, I'm thinking she's absolutely the one to do it.
Oh, for sure. She's already, I bet you're writing some kind of letter to Judge Kranick right now. She had an interesting reaction, which is kind of a non-reaction. I just had this thought, neither here nor there, that, I have this guy, Larry Levine, on. He's a prison consultant. He served 11 years in federal prison. And he said something that always stuck with me, that he actually enjoyed jail, or prison, I should say, because he didn't have taxes. He didn't have a mortgage. He didn't have any of these worries. And he's a criminal, and he just kept to himself and did his thing. And I'm thinking, like, maybe Sarah Boone will actually not hate prison. I would want to unalive myself. But look, she was indigent. That was another point that Will J made in terms of these payments. How's she paying people, this private eye? Basically, she's using welfare money, what amounts to welfare money or taxpayer money. So that was very interesting to me. But yeah,
she's
go
also
ahead.
been living that life for the last few years too. I mean, it's not like this. You're taking a person who's been enjoying freedom for the last few years and telling them they're going to now go behind bars. She's been living it.
That's a great point. That's a great point. There was another very interesting, very kind of upsetting moment in court today. You knew that the state was going to play the suitcase video. Well, George Torres' mom had reportedly never seen this video, and she was sitting in the front row, and not even 10 seconds into it, I just heard this audible gasp, and then she was, I don't want to say hysterical, but she was kind of folded over, and you could tell she was starting to hyperventilate, being ushered out by her son and daughter, and everyone took a second to try to figure it out. But when they were done with that part of the closings, James Owens was basically irate and said to the judge, this is going to impact and influence the jurors. He asked for a dismissal of the case at that point. The judge denied it. But he was kind of incredulous that a family member could cry in court, and then directed or asked the judge to direct the people in the gallery, including family members, to not indicate any sort of emotion. And I think it came across to everyone in there as really being heartless. So have you run into that?
Yeah, I mean, what do you? This is a great example of how it's a reminder this isn't a spectator sport, right? These are real people's lives, and that was a real, God honest reaction by a mother watching her son's last moments of his life. I mean, just think about how that must have weighed on this poor woman to see the last moments of her son's life to be taken in such a tragic way. Listen, I understand Owens has to, he's got to preserve some of these arguments. I understand that he feels that, perhaps that will impact the jury, but there are plenty of trials where there are outbursts in court all the time because you are dealing with such high emotions and real people's lives. And it's a reminder to us too, who cover these types of things, because we've seen that video so many times now that you kind of get dull to the idea of what's happening, and you're looking at it almost more as evidence than the final moments of this man's life as he's begging for his life. And that's how she was viewing it. And it's giving me chills just to think about it. Had I watched a family member, and that was the first time I was viewing it, I probably could not control myself either.
Yeah, and they left in tears. They were escorted down the hallway by a court representative. There's a question from Abby Crossing. James Owens, Josh, did make it very clear that he would not handle her appeal. But I guess, Abby, I can barely read this, but is asking, are there public defenders, since she is indigent, who specialize in, the appeals process for these defendants?
There are public defenders at the appellate level, and they don't function in the same way in that they don't have to deal with the client as directly, because when you go to appeal, it becomes much more a function of analyzing how the trial played out, different decisions made by the judge. So they're usually sitting in a room analyzing court transcripts and motions and hearings and everything else, and it's not so much about the facts of the case and dealing with the client. So this will likely be appealed. She will likely be assigned an attorney. We're talking months to years down the line before anything about it could happen. But it's also an interesting case where appeal could be issues here. Not that I'm saying I felt like this judge did everything right, including giving her defense every opportunity to make a defense. And that's why that ruling that he made on the overt act was so important, because that would have been an appealable issue for sure. But he really deferred to her at every opportunity and was incredibly patient, which will probably preserve this all on appeal. But it's an interesting case in how it's not straightforward. It is kind of pushing the boundaries of our idea of self-defense, our ideas of, what exactly what was her act? If you want to think about it, what did she do to cause this man's death? Well, what she did is nothing. And is that an act? Is the walking away and simply not helping enough of an act to be a crime sufficient for second-degree murder? I think the answer is yes, but that's an issue they're probably going to bring up on appeal.
It's fascinating because it's basically a self-defense case. And like you just said, without someone shooting someone or running someone over, it's literally, she zipped them in there, and they brought that up in the closings, but then she walked away. So it is, from a legal perspective, very interesting. COE, before I have you read this question, just a huge shout out to the COE for holding down the fort, Space Coast on the West Coast, Steve Cohen for booking the guests. And I cannot thank the mods enough. These have been 2 long weeks. I love it because I'm back in my reporter element, and it's interesting and fascinating for me, but it is a lot of work. So appreciate all of you on the STS team. COE, I literally cannot read that. Does Sarah get to go back to the
Sarah gets
jail?
to go back to the jail where she sleeps in the same room with 60 other women? Is she going somewhere else, or where she has been during this trial?
Josh, answer your own question.
Well, that's kind of a holding issue for the county and the state there, but the answer usually is when you are pending trial, you are kept in county custody in the county jail. And once she is sentenced, which she hasn't been sentenced yet, so once she is sentenced, she's now in the custody of the state, and that's when she goes off to prison. So I imagine she's probably going back to the same place she's been for the last few years.
Yeah, someone said no mother should ever see that. That's 100% true. Can she fire the appellate attorneys? Josh, she ended with her 9th attorney. Will she have 9 appellate attorneys as well?
Yeah, it doesn't really operate the same way. She will have very little interaction with this attorney. She might meet the person will introduce themselves and say that I'm going to handle your appellate issues. But as far as like talking about strategy, talking about evidence, any discussion about what arguments are going to be made, that's really out of her hands at this point, and she'll have little control over that like she did before.
Yeah, this is a very important point here. Can someone please acknowledge Sarah's son? His name is Lucas. I think he's around 12 years old now. His mom is gone. I don't want to sound callous, but it might be the best thing for him because she was not a very present mother for him. And he's living with his father, who has full custody now, but he is certainly deserving of having 2 parents. And now he's got 1 parent. And if he ever wants to see his mom, he's going to have to visit her in state prison. So that's another side. Like Josh was saying, these are real people, real victims. And he is certainly among the victims. It is an absolute tragedy. Who was the 4th person? I don't know. It's a great question. Great question. I don't even know. I assumed it was the hot pink blouse juror, but I don't know. I'll find out and I'll let you guys know. So yeah, it was an intense 2 weeks. We're probably going to do some kind of follow up on this next week. We're going to get back to the Wild Diddy case with Josh, and we'll see what happens with the Menendez brothers. Josh Ritter, of course, is a criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor of the year. He's also the host of Courtroom Confidential. You need to immediately subscribe to that. He's got a Menendez episode out right now. Thank you so much. These super stickers. Thank you, Super Planner Girl. Really appreciate it. So check out Courtroom Confidential. Josh Ritter, do we have a score on the Dodgers game yet?
When I left, and don't anybody tell me, I paused the game and it was 0-0. So yeah, if one thing that you didn't add to my credentials there is I'm also a Dodger diehard fan, but I'm also a big fan of STS and a big fan of yours. And I if we're giving shout outs, I want to give shout out to you for the incredible coverage that you did on this case and filling us all in. Having eyes inside of the courtroom is really something that cannot be replaced, even with cameras inside of the courtroom. So thank you for involving me as much as you have. But yeah, if I'm given my leave, I'd like to go back and hopefully see my boys in blue.
Yeah.
Give some trouble to your Yankees. You're a Yankee fan, right?
I was born and raised in Jersey. My dad's from the Bronx. I'm a definite Yankee fan. So
this is a
whatever.
great series, though. I'm so glad to see them meeting again. Just so historic.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like the old days. I'll tell you what, if the Dodgers win, I'll wear a Dodgers jersey next time we're on, and I'll have you wear a Yankees jersey.
I love it. I'll take that bet. I'll take that bet.
All right, man. Go watch the game. Thank you. I'm just going to wrap things up here. I can't control anything. So
thank
enjoy
you
the night.
guys.
I'll talk
Take
to you
care.
soon, Josh. Thanks a lot. So we're down to 1 here. Someone had just asked sort of an interesting question. I have no idea what it was, but it was interesting. COE, what's the word?
Yeah, so the question was from Bagels Girl, and it says, can you please remark on the alternate jurors waiting and being in the gallery for the verdict?
Yeah, they all came back in. I mean, I assume that's kosher. I'm not 100% sure, but obviously it is because Judge Kranick, he dots every I and crosses every T. And they worked on this case for the 2 full weeks, and I think they were deserving to be in there and be a part of this entire process. I got to say, this jury pool, this group of jurors, took this job really seriously, seemed completely like in step with each other. There wasn't like a weird personality. Charlie Adelson case, there was one juror who just stood out to everybody. Not the case here. We talked a lot about the DV juror because of the facts of the case, but she was very invested and serious about the job. It's hard to imagine any grounds for appeal. I cannot. This is never going to get some kind of appellate rule. I don't want to say ever, but I'd be really stunned because Judge Kranick was really, really thorough. So I just cannot see that happening. COE, any other questions?
Do you want to keep going, or are you ready to go to bed? It's almost 10 o'clock, and you've been going all day, so you decide.
Yeah, I think it is. I think I've said everything that I have to say about this at this point. Been going about 12 hours, and we can circle back. By the way, I'm so glad you brought that up. I went up to Will J and said, "Listen, great job. I just want you to know we've got a big following." And every day I was tweeting and then live chatting a sock update, and he just smiled. He's a very interesting guy. I don't know how else to say that. Both him and Dave. When Dave Cacciatore was in the courtroom, he's like so loud and clear, and then you get him off camera, and he's like very, very quiet, like one word, like reserved, like goes right into a shell. And same with Will J. I just think they're really like camera shy, and they want to keep a distance from media because they take their jobs very seriously, as they should. They want to influence or be influenced. So when I went up and told him about the socks, he smiled and said, "Thank you. That's funny." And that was it. I walked away. That was it. COE, as much as I know you want me to keep going for another 5 hours because you're comfortable at home in a nice cozy bed, Joel, you had the best media questions at the press conference. Thank you, Lee, for that. Been doing the job for a while, so I appreciate it. And it's weird. Sometimes reporters are afraid to ask questions in a scrum for fear of looking stupid, but I've looked stupid so many times that I'm no longer really afraid of that. Thank you, Joel, for your dedication to the case. We appreciate it so much. Please go get some rest. Thank you so much. It's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to have this COE sign us out. My man Myron, I got to meet Myron. He's in Miami. I'm going to go home at a hotel. I'm going to order some food. I'm going to watch the Yankees game. And, I'm glad George Torres got justice. That's what it's all about. I'm glad Josh brought that up because this turns into drama and entertainment in some ways, and it really should not be. It really should be. The focus should be on the victims, and that's what we try to do at Surviving the Survivor. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. We've got a Patreon page, and the biggest gift you can give us is share the show with a friend. Biggest gift you can give me, order my book, Surviving the Survivor. It's on Amazon all over the world, and it's a story that will definitely change the way you look at life. Love you, America. Love you, Orlando. And justice for George Torres. COE, I'm going to have you take us out of here. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.